We travel through Sudan, the largest country in Africa, to learn about a world that was already old before our world had even begun.
The lands to the south of Egypt, generally called Nubia, had 5 important golden ages. The first golden age, which was called Tarseti, some people call that, in translation, the land of the bow. This civilization was older than First Dynasty Egypt by about 200 years.
They also domesticated animals here first and before Egypt, so pastoralism was very important. Depending on how far back, if you say 9,000 years ago, then you can say yes.
Sudan was often ahead of Egypt in terms of developing technology because it had perhaps a smaller population.
So when you hear recent discussions on who were the black pharaohs, referring in particular to the Nubian Pharaohs or the Kushitic Pharaohs, those pharaohs they often call black pharaohs in a way to try and distinguish them from the others, but they can't be, because as we said, all the early dynastic and intermediate pharaohs were black.
The religion of the Kushites is quite interesting.
Clearly they share the same religious beliefs as with the Egyptians.
One of the important deities was Amen.
They all worshipped god Amun, who was the same god as in Egypt, the state god of the pharaohs, whose main temple was in fact in Napata. With some additions, so to speak, some local gods were worshipped, like god Apedemak, a lion god.
I'm here at Naga, at one of the Kushites' most well-preserved sites here today in Sudan.
Temples were really important, both in Kemet and in Kush.
When you begin to look at the development of temples, the temples that we find in Nubia, the temples that we find in Egypt, the temples were universities.
What I also find very interesting and very attractive about the Kushite civilization was that, unlike in Egypt, where it was only the educated classes and the priesthood and so on who could read and write, in Kush they achieved a high level of literacy. That meant that humble people could actually read and write and were encouraged to do so.
And the fact that the temples not only acted as places of worship, but places of learning also.
One of the great things about the Sudanese Meroitic Kingdom, they're one of these kingdoms that keep the Romans out. It's one of the kingdoms that the Roman Empire tried to conquer and failed to conquer.